said changing weather patterns were to blame for livestock behavior. Encourage ranchers and breeders to attend this weekend seminar on Beulah Avenue in Pueblo. And if you're out late tonight, you may see some low-flying helicopters near Silverthorne and Leadville. Seems the Arapaho Park Services will be spraying for an infestation of box elderbugs.
Some horror games leave a mark, titles that push players to the limit, forcing them to face darkness, madness, and pure fear. Today, we talk about 3 indie horror games that redefine the genre from my personal opinion. Outlast, Visage, and Blair Witch. 3 different experiences, but one common truth. Fear is not just a gameplay element here. So, let's start.
They killed us. They got out. The variants. You can't fight them. You have to hide. You can unlock the main doors from security control. You have to get the fuck out of this terrible place.
In 2013, Red Barrels released Outlast, a first-person survival horror set in the Mount Massive Asylum. No weapons, no hope. Just a camcorder and the awareness that something lurks in the dark. You are Miles Upshur, an investigative journalist following a tip about illegal experiments within the asylum. A fatal mistake. The gate closes behind you and reality turns into a nightmare. The asylum is a hellscape, inhabited by deformed creatures and deranged killers. The rule is simple. Run, hide, survive. Your only defense is the camcorder, equipped with night vision. But batteries drain fast, and running out means facing the darkness unarmed. Every corridor, every room, every step is designed to make you feel vulnerable. The tension is relentless. The sound of your own breathing becomes your worst enemy. Scattered documents reveal the horrors of forbidden experiments, mutilated bodies, and shattered minds. But the truth is darker than you think, and escape is not an option. Outlast doesn't just make you feel in danger, it forces you to be the prey. In Outlast, fear is not just an element of the game, it's the very foundation of the experience. The moment you step inside Mount Massive Asylum, you realize that you're completely alone, trapped in a labyrinth of horror, with no means to fight back. The game doesn't just rely on jump scares. It masterfully builds suspense through its oppressive atmosphere, chilling sound design, and the ever-present sensation of being hunted. The asylum itself feels alive, its dark hallways echoing with distant screams, whispering voices, and the unsettling scuttling of unseen horrors. Each step forward unravels a deeper layer of the asylum's gruesome past, as you uncover disturbing recordings and fragmented notes that hint at the monstrous experiments conducted within its walls. The deeper you go, the more twisted the reality becomes. Visions blur, shadows move, and sanity feels like it's slipping away. But the true terror lies in the unpredictable nature of the enemies. The variants, grotesquely deformed patients of the asylum, patrol the corridors with erratic behavior, some whispering incoherently, others violently lashing out. Some stalk in silence, forcing you to listen carefully for their presence. Encounters with them are not scripted set pieces, but tense, heart-pounding sequences where survival depends entirely on your ability to hide and maneuver through the darkness. The camcorder is your only companion, a crucial tool for both navigation and documenting the nightmare. But its night vision mode, while essential in the pitch-black corridors, comes at a cost. Battery life is scarce, and searching for replacements forces you to venture into areas you'd rather avoid. Every moment spent scanning the darkness with the green-tinted glow of night vision intensifies the fear, as you might see something lurking just beyond the edges of the frame. As the game progresses, the asylum becomes more chaotic, the narrative spiraling into even greater madness. Twisted religious cults, inhuman experiments, and an unseen entity known as the Wall Rider turn what begins as a mere investigation into a descent into absolute horror. Every new revelation challenges your understanding of what's real and what's hallucination, until you reach the brutal conclusion where the true horror of Mount Massive Asylum is finally revealed. Outlast doesn't just scare you, it immerses you in an experience of helplessness, paranoia, and dread. It's not about fighting back, it's about surviving long enough to witness the full scope of the nightmare. But even if you make it out, will you ever truly escape? Horror games like Outlast and Visage create fear through unique mechanics. One forces you to flee from relentless threats, while the other traps you inside a haunted house with no escape. Blair Witch, 2019, developed by Bloober Team, takes a different approach, diving deep into psychological horror. It blends supernatural terror with the fragility of the human mind, crafting an experience that is as unsettling as it is immersive. Set in 1996, the game follows Ellis, a former police officer haunted by his past, as he joins the search for a missing boy in the infamous Black Hills Forest, the legendary setting of the Blair Witch Project. Armed with only a flashlight, a camcorder, and the companionship of his loyal dog Bullet, Ellis ventures into the woods only to realize that they have no intention of letting him leave. The horror in Blair Witch doesn't rely on constant enemy encounters or cheap jump scares. Instead, it thrives on an oppressive atmosphere, ever-shifting environments, and the slow unraveling of Ellis's sanity. The forest feels alive, warping space and time, leading you in circles, manipulating your perception. Shadows dart between the trees, whispers echo through the darkness, and the deeper you go, the more reality itself begins to distort. Your camcorder is more than just a tool. It acts as a bridge between past and present, revealing hidden truths and unlocking paths that seem to defy logic. But as Ellis sinks further into paranoia and fear, the true horror becomes clear. The past he's been running from may be even darker than the cursed forest itself. Unlike traditional survival horror games, Blair Witch focuses on psychological distress, isolation, and the terrifying realization that sometimes the worst monsters are the ones within us. It explores themes of trauma, guilt, and the disintegration of the human mind under supernatural influence, making for an experience that lingers long after the game is over. If Outlast is about running for your life, Visage is about the slow, inescapable descent into madness. It doesn't rely on fast-paced chases or grotesque creatures lunging from the darkness. Instead, it thrives on psychological torment, creating an atmosphere so thick with dread that every step forward feels like a mistake. Released in 2020 by Sad Square Studio, Visage was heavily inspired by PT, the now infamous playable teaser for Silent Hills. But Visage takes its concept further, crafting a hauntingly immersive experience that is more than just a tribute, it's an evolution of psychological horror. The game is set in a massive, labyrinthine house, one that at first glance appears normal, yet soon reveals itself as a twisted, living entity of its own. Every room, every hallway, every shadow holds a sinister presence. And unlike traditional horror games, there are no direct threats chasing you down, no scripted encounters forcing you to run. The terror is ambient, unpredictable, and deeply psychological. The house in Visage is not abandoned, it's haunted by the echoes of its past. You don't just explore, you relive the tragedies that unfolded within its walls. The game presents multiple storylines, each one tied to a former resident who met a gruesome or tragic fate. You're not just learning their stories, you're being forced to experience them firsthand. From a mother driven to insanity, to a child tormented by an unseen force, each tale is uniquely disturbing, feeding into the overwhelming sense of dread. The further you progress, the more the house warps and shifts, distorting reality in a way that makes you question your own senses. Doors disappear, hallways stretch into infinity, staircases lead nowhere, and mirrors reflect something that isn't there. You're not just navigating a haunted house, you're trapped inside a nightmare that bends and reshapes itself around your fears. Unlike many horror games that arm the player with weapons or clear objectives, Visage gives you only one tool: light. But even that is unreliable. Light bulbs explode, leaving you in suffocating darkness. Candles provide a temporary reprieve, but their flames flicker and die too quickly. Every second spent in the dark erodes your sanity, and the worse your mental state becomes, the more aggressive the entities in the house become. This mechanic is what makes Visage so uniquely terrifying. You're not running from a tangible monster. You're running from the encroaching madness that the house inflicts upon you. Shadows seem to move when you're not looking. Objects appear and disappear. And when the entities finally manifest, it's already too late. What sets Visage apart is its commitment to psychological horror. There are no obvious safe zones, no predictable jump scares. The game actively works against your instincts, punishing you for trying to control the situation. It plays with your expectations, creating moments where you think you're safe, only for something to change in the environment that makes your stomach drop. A door that was open before is now locked. A hallway that should lead to the living room now extends into endless darkness. A television flickers on with static, showing disturbing images that seem familiar. The fear isn't just in what you see, it's in what you feel. That creeping sensation that something is watching you, just beyond the edge of your vision. That moment when you turn around, expecting nothing, but find something waiting. Unlike traditional horror games, Visage doesn't hold your hand. There are no clear objectives, no hints, no guiding markers. You are left to explore and piece things together on your own. This slow, deliberate pacing makes the game even more unsettling. Every new discovery feels like an intrusion into something you were never meant to see. It's not a game for the impatient. Some puzzles require wandering through the house for extended periods, with no clear indication of what you're supposed to do next. This might frustrate some players, but for those who embrace the experience, it only amplifies the immersion. You're not playing a game, you're living a waking nightmare. Visage doesn't rely on excessive gore or cheap scare tactics. Its horror is elegant, methodical, and deeply psychological. It burrows into your mind, planting seeds of paranoia that linger long after you've put the controller down. It understands that true horror isn't about being chased by a monster. It's about knowing that you are utterly powerless, that no matter what you do, the house has already claimed you. And by the time you realize that escape is impossible, you're already too far gone. Outlast, Visage, and Blair Witch each deliver their own brand of terror. One forces you to run for your life from unstoppable horrors. Another locks you inside a haunted house with no way out. And one strands you in an endless, cursed forest, where reality itself is your enemy. Yet all three share a common goal: to make you feel helpless, vulnerable, and completely consumed by fear. Which one did you dare to play? Let me know if you've played these games and what you think about them. As always, share your thoughts in the comments, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.